Okay, my babies. Today we're on story number 18, and the name of the story is called First Journey with the Reindeer. According to Frank L. Böhm, Santa Claus spent his growing up years in Laughing Valley near the forest of Brzee and was friends with all the elves and fairies who lived there. In search of a profession, Santa discovered that he was very good at making toys and making children happy. So he began giving toys to as many children as he could find. At the time, however, Santa had no form of transportation other than his own feet. He had to find a solution to this problem. Those were happy days for Claus, when he carried his loads of toys to the children in Laughing Valley. But from his travels all over the world, he knew that children were everywhere, and he longed to make as many as possible happy with his gifts. So he loaded a great sack of all kinds of toys, slung it upon his back to carry it more easily, and started off on yet another trip, and yet a longer trip. Wherever he showed his merry face, he received a friendly welcome, and his fame had spread into far lands. At each village, the children swarmed around him, following his footsteps wherever he went. Mothers and fathers smiled upon him and gave him kind words, and Claus felt very well repaid for his long, hard journey. When the sack was empty, he went back again to Laughing Valley, and once more filled it to the brim. After a third journey of many days' walking distance, the store of toys ran out. So without delay, Claus set about making fresh supplies. From seeing so many children studying their tastes, he had occurred several new ideas for toys. The dollies were so popular that he resolved to make many of them in all sizes, and to dress them in bright colored clothing. The older boys and girls loved toy animals, so he made cats, elephants, and horses, and many of the little fellows had musical natures. So he made drums, and many of the little fellows had musical natures. So he made drums and cymbals and whistles and horns. All of this kept him so busy that before he realized it, the winter season had come, with deeper snow than usual, and he knew that he would not be able to leave the valley with his heavy pack. He just knew that if he were to undertake such a journey, Jack Frost was sure to nip his nose and ears, and Jack's father, the Frost King, would not do a thing to stop his mischievous son. One afternoon, Claus was looking out his window and saw two of the deer he had known in the forest walking towards his house. Claus was surprised, not that the friendly deer should visit him, but that they walked on the surface of the snow as easily as if it were solid ground, even though the snow in the valley was many feet deep. So, when the deer came near, he opened his door and called to them. "Good morning, Prancer. Tell me how you are able to walk on the snow so easily." "It's frozen hard," answered Prancer. "The Frost King has breathed on it," said Dancer, coming up coming up, and the surface is now solid as ice. Perhaps, remarked Claus thoughtfully, I might now carry my bag of toys to the children. It's a long journey. Is it a long journey? Asked Prancer. Yes, it is. It will take me many days, for the pack is heavy, answered Claus. Then the snow would melt before you could get back, said the deer. You must wait until spring, Claus. Claus sighed. Had I your fleet feet, said he, I could make a journey in one day. But you do not, replied Dancer, looking at his own slender legs with pride. Perhaps I could ride upon your back, Claus ventured to remark after a pause. Oh no, our backs are not strong enough to bear your weight, said Prancer decidedly. But if you had a sleigh and could harness us to it, we might draw you easily to your pack, and your pack as well. I'll make a sleigh, exclaimed Claus. Will you agree to pull me if I do? Well, replied Prancer, we must first ask the elves, our keepers, for permission, but if they say it's fine, we will gladly pull your sleigh. Then go at once, cried Claus eagerly. By the time you get back, I will be ready. Prancer and Dancer had long wished to see the world, so they gladly ran over the frozen snow and asked the elves if they might take Claus on his journey. Meanwhile, the toy maker hurriedly began to make a sleigh, using materials from his woodpile. He made two long runners and turned up towards the front end ends and nailed a platform across them. Soon he completed a comfortable seat to ride in. Next, Claus made a harness by twisting strong cords together, and from these ran straps that fastened the deer to the sleigh. Soon the deer returned, and the news that they could make the journey as long as they got back home the next day before daybreak. That is not very long, but we are swift and strong, said Dancer. If we get started this evening, we can travel many miles during the night. Claus decided to make the attempt, so he loaded up the sack, harnessed the reindeer to the sleigh, and climbed in. All ready? He shouted. Away we go! The deer leaned forward, and the next moment away flew the sleigh over the frozen snow. The swiftness of the motion surprised Claus, for in a few strides they were across the valley and gliding over the broad plains beyond. The moon shone brightly to light their way, and Claus soon decided it was just as pleasant to travel by night as by day. Away they sled, over the hills and through the valleys until they reached the village where Claus had never been before. Here he called on them to stop, and they immediately obeyed. But a new problem now presented itself, for everyone had gone to bed and locked their doors. Santa could not get in. I'm afraid we have to make this trip all for nothing, he sighed. Prancer looked at the houses. Each had a roof with a broad chimney. Why don't you climb down that chimney, he asked. Santa looked at it. That would be easy if I were on top of the roof, he answered. Then hold on tight, and we will take you there, said the deer, and in one great bound they landed on the roof. Good, cried Claus. Well pleased, and down the chimney he went with a with a pack of toys. In this fashion, Santa and the deer were able to visit every house in the village and all the ones nearby. So every sleeping child awoke the next morning to find a toy. At last the supply of toys had gone, and Claus seated himself in the sleigh and turned the deer towards home. What's that streak of gray across the sky?" asked Dancer. "That's the coming of day," answered Claus. "Good gracious!" exclaimed Prancer. "If we don't get home before it's light, the elves will never let us make this trip again. Hold on tight, Claus." Santa held on, and in the next moment he was moving so swiftly that his sleigh was flying across the sky. Finally the sleigh came to a stop, and Santa tumbled forward in his seat into a snowdrift. As he picked himself up, he heard the deer crying, "Goodbye, Claus, goodbye. We can hardly wait till next year." And that is how Santa started to use the reindeer for his long journey, delivering toys to children everywhere. Okay, that's the end of our stories, babies. I love you, and sweet dreams. Don't forget your prayers, and I will see you tomorrow.